Hi Moonies, welcome to the Sailor Moon Fan Club podcast. I'm your host, Victoria L. Johnson, aka Miss Old School, and I'm here with Amanda C. Miller. She's the voice of some of the most popular characters, including Sailor Jupiter in the VIZ Media redub, the voice of Boruto in Boruto, Flutterina in She-Ra, and she's the creator of the web series called Ghosts and Stuff, which is described as Parks and Recreation meets Ghostbusters. How awesome. I'm so happy to have you on the podcast. Welcome to the Sailor Moon Fan Club. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you for being here. This is great. Like I'm talking to Sailor Jupiter. Like that is like the ultimate.
I get to talk to you, so it's a great Sunday.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, fun times all around. So what was your first memory of watching Sailor Moon?
So, I remember I saw it on TV in France because that's where my mom's from, and so I was visiting my grandparents, and I was probably in like third or fourth grade or something like that, and I saw this show, and there were these like colorful haired girls, and I was like, what is this? And there's like glitter and magic, and I think the episode I came in on was probably one of the most confusing when you didn't know what they were talking about, because at the time I didn't speak French. I do now, but they were like, it was the episode in Sailor Moon R where Chibiusa finds her mom in like the quartz or the crystal, and it's like, mommy.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, wait a second. That chick's in the crystal, but that chick's also standing next to her. What's happening?
Right.
So, yeah. That was my first one, but later when I came to the States, I watched it in English, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it now.
Right. How further along was that?
So we moved back to the States in 5th grade, so I think it was when Toonami was just starting.
Right.
So I think they started it from the beginning then, so I kind of got to actually see everything in context.
Did you like put two and two together with like, oh, this is that show I saw in France?
Yeah, well, I think the thing is, I remembered seeing it, so we lived in Germany in 3rd and 4th grade, because my dad was in the Air Force, and so I watched it on German TV more regularly, so at that point I knew what it was, whereas when I watched it in France, I was like, I don't know what this is, but I saw it in Germany, was like, okay, cool, still can't understand it, but I'm watching it anyway. So then the third time was the charm, so by when I moved to America, that was when I finally understood what I was watching.
Right. Did you have like a Sailor Scout or a Sailor Senshi that you wanted to be, or you pretended to be, like all of us did?
Oh yeah, like Sailor Jupiter was actually, like, no lie, she was the one that I identified with, because I moved around a lot as an Air Force kid, so I was always the new girl in school. My family, I don't know if we have a bunch of like hormones in our system or what, but we all kind of grow pretty tallish, pretty young. So I'm like average. I'm like, I don't know, I'm 5'8", which is tall-ish, but it's not like giant. But when you're like in 4th grade and you're like 5'5",
right,
that was a little more awkward. And then I was also into sports. I played soccer. I played ice hockey. Like I was really into all those things. So Sailor Jupiter kind of embodied a lot of the things I was going through at the time.
Right. Yeah, she was a ice skater too, I think.
Yeah, I'm not as graceful. I played goalie because goalies don't have to be as good with their skates. They just have to be quick with their reflexes. And they can just park themselves by the net and kind of just do little movements. They don't have to be going like 90 miles an hour and then stop or do any jumps or any of that nonsense.
Right.
So
just side to side.
Yeah, side to side, up, down, get good at your lunges, get good at catching, and, whatever. If you fall over, maybe that's just better because you're covering more of the net, so.
So how was it like first off, auditioning for Sailor Moon, and then later on getting the role of Sailor Jupiter, especially since that was the character that, like, you wanted to be when you were younger?
It was pretty surreal because it was like 2014, I think, and, I got an audition from this studio that I only worked with once before. I worked on like a one day on a video game for like Marvel Heroes. And I guess they remembered me. So when they sent out the auditions for Sailor Moon, they were like, hey, we'd love you to audition for this show. It's top secret, so we can't tell you what it's called. Here are the character sides. And a character side is just, the audition script. You know, it's like a page or two of the lines they want you to read. And they didn't really do a good job of hiding the show, though, because even though they were said, oh, we can't tell you the name, the audition sides were labeled as the characters, like Sailor Moon, Sailor Jupiter, Sailor Mercury. And
I
the
wonder
sides
what this is. Yeah,
yeah, the sides were pretty much like all the attacks, like, you know, you're like Jupiter, Oak, Evolution, and all that stuff. And then a monologue for each of the characters that was pretty much like, you know, my name's Makoto Kino, and I'm blah, 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 blah. So, I don't know if they just didn't care to hide it, or if they didn't realize that it was as popular as it was. But, I was kind of baffled, because I had heard at the time that they were going to be doing Sailor Moon Crystal, so I figured that's what this was for. They hadn't announced that they were also going to do, like, a unedited redub of the classic, to be closer to the Japanese. So, anyway, basically, I auditioned. I auditioned for all 5 girls, and then Queen Beryl and Luna, and because that's what they sent me. And I recorded it in my closet, because that's what you do as a voice actor. You're like, there's clothes in here. It absorbs the sound. Yeah, it was very, very professional. But yeah, I auditioned, I sent my MP3s back in, and I kind of forgot about it. And then a couple weeks later, I heard some voice actors, we were at a party, and they were like, oh, so did you remember that top secret thing that went around? Like, everybody knew what it was. And they said, they're like, yeah, apparently they haven't found the cast that they're looking for, so they're having another round of auditions. So I was like, okay, man, I guess I didn't get it, because, you know, they must have not liked me or whatever. And then, like, a couple weeks after that, like, I got an email from the head of the studio being like, hey, so if there was to be an announcement of some sort at Anime Expo this year, would you be available? And I'm like, yes.
Right, sure.
And then he was like, great, cool, stay tuned. And then he just disappeared again for a couple weeks. I'm like, what the heck was that? You know, because you don't know if that means that you're close, you're in the consideration, or you got it. So, what happened after that? Oh, okay, so then a couple more weeks went by, and then I get an email being like, congratulations, you are, you know, cast in Sailor Moon, and here's the breakdown. We're gonna announce it at Anime Expo. We're gonna start recording in April or something, and this was like February at this point. And then, yeah, congratulations, but it didn't tell me who I was. And I was just like, oh gosh, am I like sneaker monster number 7, or am I like a main character? I didn't think I could possibly be Sailor Jupiter, because I was like, that would be too, what are the odds of that, you know, that I would get my favorite character out of all the people who auditioned. And then finally, after like April passed, I was like, they said they were gonna start recording in April, and I haven't gotten any emails. Did they like fire me or something? And they're like, oh, no, your character, Sailor Jupiter, doesn't come in until episode 25. And I like lost my mind.
Right. Man.
Yeah. So that was like the long-winded version of all that.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
It was also weird too, because I thought it was going to be for Crystal. So when you go in the booth, I was not aware. Like, I was like, this is literally the show I watched growing up. What's happening? They're like, oh yeah. No, we're doing both. So that was kind of crazy to be like, not only am I my favorite character from growing up, but I'm also getting to play her in the footage I watched growing up. So it's literally like being in my backyard again and playing Sailor Jupiter, but like for real this time.
And like, that's like, Sailor Moon's like one of the biggest shows, but you're also in Boruto, which is also a huge show right now. So like, how has that been? Yeah.
That one was kind of I guess less fanfare about that one, because they basically were like, here's an audition. I auditioned. A couple weeks went by. I was sitting in my improv class, and I got an email being like, hey, congratulations, your cast is Boruto. Can you start tomorrow? So, yeah, because we started with the video game. And then we didn't. I don't think it was like the video game, and then the movie.
All the characters seem like fun.
And then I don't think we did anything for, like, working on the process was fun, because, you know, you have Noelle, the creator, in the room, and, you know, Mary Elizabeth McGlynn was the director, and it's just like a fun, positive room full of women. I got to record a little bit with Amy, and then with Merritt, who plays, I think, Frosta, and like, everybody was just so cool and supportive, and Yeah, it was really cool, especially because I never get cast as like cute little pink fairy creatures.
Hmm.
So I was like, oh, all right, I get to have a little fun here.
Do you have a favorite role?
That one's hard. I know people are like, "Oh, it's like trying to choose between your children. You don't have favorites." But I've also heard from some parents that you totally have favorites. It just changes. You're just not allowed to say you have favorites.
Man, I have to call my mom. Make sure I'm still there on top.
Yeah, I'm like, you can. I'm sure you can do things to sway the positioning. It's like any other competition, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Do more chores, but I mean, they all have a special place in my heart because, like, nostalgia-wise, obviously Sailor Jupiter, because, like, anytime I'm having a crappy time in life or I'm like, man, this dream I have or that goal seems completely out of reach, I just think of, like, you got Sailor Jupiter. Like, out of all the millions of little girls who watched Sailor Moon growing up, you were in the right place at the right time. I heard later that they sent the auditions to Japan, like they sent like their top 10 or 5 picks of each character to Japan for Naoko, the creator, to listen to, and she made the final decisions. And that was like so crazy to be like she heard, the creator of the show I loved heard my voice, and out of all the other people was like, yeah, that's Sailor Jupiter. So I'm like, if though the odds of that are so narrow, but they happened, I'm just kind of like, you know what? Anything else can happen. Don't never say never.
Right.
So that one has the most like sentimental significance. I think Junko Enoshima in the Danganronpa video games was probably like overall my favorite, just because I got to stretch my range with that one, and yeah. Again, I don't want to give spoilers for anything. It's because I never know where people are and things. But she's a lot of fun.
So you've been doing voice acting for like 8 or 9 years?
Yeah. Let's see. I moved to LA in 2010. Like I graduated college in 2010, and then 3 months later, I packed my car and drove to LA. So yeah. Yeah. I guess 10 years now. But
Wow.
God, it's 2020 already.
No, I still have to like think about it. Like, oh yeah, like 1990 was 40 years ago.
No, this is all bizarre. Like the fact that like I'm watching the other night, my roommates and I were watching like Spice Girls videos and like Britney Spears and all these things, and we're like, oh my gosh, there are people who were not even born when this was out.
It's so baffling to me, and it's 30 years. I'm sorry, I'm bad at math, but yeah, like there are things too. Like I'll like watch it, and I'm like, there are people who were born in 2000 who are 20 now, and I'm like, how is that possible?
Yeah, they never had to deal with the whole like Y2K panic. They never had to deal with VHS tapes, or when you had to I don't know if you ever did this, like on the radio you would like try to record the songs on a cassette tape, and you're like, oh, this is my song, but then the DJ was talking over the beginning or the end of it, and so like that's how like you used to make mixtapes, and now you're just like on Apple Music like
play whatever song I want at any moment.
Yeah. Like they have Spotify now.
Yeah, that still baffles me because like I remember Usher's Burn. I loved that song, and I like tried to record it so many times, and you always had to like be like always ready, just hit record and catch it at the beginning so you can get the full song. And then there's still songs I remember now with those like DJs talking and like the specific mixes they did. Like there are certain songs like I'm like, oh, this song comes after this song because that's how like the mix I have has it.
Yep. Oh, I miss that. I mean, like I don't miss the lack of technology. Like I like having the internet, because when I was a kid you couldn't do projects because you had to actually go to the library and like look at an encyclopedia for things.
Yeah.
But there's something nice about not being reachable all the time. You know, you can just like go to dinner and not have to worry about somebody messaging you, because you're like, they'll leave a message on my voicemail and I'll get to it when I get back home. But for now, I'm out and doing something else.
Right. That's one of the things I enjoy about traveling sometimes. One of the few things, like with flights or even like being on like an Amtrak train and you don't really have like good reception. It's like you can kind of like step away for a bit.
Yeah, it's weird because sometimes it can be panic inducing if you know that you're like, oh gosh, people are probably going to try to get in touch with me and I have no reception. But yeah, if I've booked out with my agents, I'm like, yo, I'm on vacation for these 2 weeks. It's the weirdest feeling. You feel like you're in another time when you're like, nobody needs me, nobody has anything to ask of me. I can just enjoy my life. This is weird.
Right. Yeah. Same. I'm like, oh, I don't. And I think the same thing. I was kind of like that guilt you feel, where it's like, oh, someone might be trying to reach me, but like if you don't have reception and you can't do anything about it, it's like, well, there's nothing I can do. Might as well enjoy myself. Deal with
exactly.
it.
Like you learn to live more in the present when you're not. And I realize now how often I check my phone, thinking that there's some sort of update, and it's like, who cares? Like, what am I looking for? Like, why am I checking it compulsively? It's almost an addiction now.
Yeah. Sometimes I'll switch around my apps just to see, like, because oftentimes I'll go to something just like mindlessly, like Twitter or Instagram, and then if I switch it, I'm like, oh, like I go to this app a lot.
It's bizarre. Like I've done that too, and it's helpful because you have to think about it, and then you go, oh, what am I I just was on Facebook. Why would I open it up a minute later? Like it helps. I also put certain things on the last page. Like I have an iPhone, and so it's like, there's like 3 pages of screens, and I'll put the stuff I don't want to access as much on the last page, so that it's more of a slog to get to Facebook, or it's more of a slog to get to the games or whatever I might be compulsively pressing.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good idea too. I might try that one. I need all the tips.
There's a book called Atomic Habits. I think it's by James Clear, and I read it recently, and it's really awesome. And it talks about that, where it's like, make the habit. I mean, it's common sense, but it's like make the habits you want to stop doing much harder. Like make there be so much more resistance, and make the habits you want to start doing effortless. So like if you're trying to save money, turn on auto investing, or I don't know, like I have I have an app that I downloaded that I probably shouldn't tell this because then all my friends are going to think I'm less thoughtful, but I have an app that schedules text messages and auto sends them later. So like I can spend one day, put all my friends' birthdays in there, write a birthday message to them to send on that day, and then forget about it. Or if I have a friend that I want to check in with every couple weeks, I'll have it auto send like check-in text, like or to my roommates, I can have a text that sends and says like, hey, don't forget today's trash day.
Right.
So just making things easier. So me trying to be a better friend, I can automate that, which probably defeats the purpose. But
I mean, the fact that you thought about that, I think, is thoughtful.
I guess that's the thing, is like I am thinking about them. It's just that I'm thinking about them on one day and then letting it go. But yeah, you're right. The thought was there. Like I want to send my friends personalized birthday messages. I just get busy, and if I'm not on Facebook, I miss the birthday that day. So I just didn't want to miss a birthday again.
Yeah, it's being proactive. I'm sure they'll understand. It'll be fine.
I'll just, I'm like giving all my secrets. I'm like, no, I remembered. I thought about it. Yeah, totally didn't automate this text.
Yeah. So being busy, like you do a lot of conventions and stuff. How has that been?
It's really fun. Because when you're, I guess this is similar for a lot of most acting mediums aside from theater, you don't get like an immediate response or feedback to your work. So you don't know if you're affecting people, and you don't know if people are enjoying themselves or even watching. So conventions are kind of like a way to be like, oh wow, like this thing that I did by myself in a booth, maybe with like a director and an engineer, like in this dark windowless room, is touching people. And getting to hear people's stories of like, yeah, I watched this episode of this show, and when my sister died or something like that, and it made me feel closer to her. Or just things like that kind of remind you that it's more than just acting. I mean, like acting is my life, but it also, sometimes you think like, oh, I'm not really helping anybody, I'm just being selfish, like, but no, like the number of times a movie or a book or some sort of art has helped me, through depression or whatever, like art really can save lives. Like not, if you got a broken bone, go to the doctor, but it's just nice to see how like art can help mend hearts, and conventions are a great way to see that firsthand, and to also see like families where, like, we'll have Sailor Moon especially, we'll have, like, a mom dressed up as, you know, like, Queen Serenity, and then her daughter will be, you know, like Chibiusa or something like that, and they're like, yeah, I was watching it as a kid, and now I'm getting her into it, and just seeing people spread the love is really cool.
Have you been able to, like, fan out yourself? Like, have you seen somebody or met someone at a convention that you're like, oh, I'm a fan of you? Like,
oh my gosh,
as people are reacting to you being like, I'm a fan of you, you know?
I become like that girl in high school or middle school or whatever that age is where you like somebody and so you ignore them.
Oh yeah.
And like, because it's weird because I don't like breaking the fourth wall.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll see somebody that I'm just like, oh my god, like for example, for me, it's the Boy Meets World cast.
Yes.
I loved them so much growing up, and it felt like they were my friends. So it's weird because, like, I don't want to talk to them because if I talk to them, and I'm sure they'll be lovely, but I know that they're not Corey and Topanga. They're, you know, was it Danielle and Ben, and I'm sure they're again lovely, but I don't want to break that illusion that I grew up with these friends, especially because I you know, I moved around so much. They were like my consistent friend group that I had. So yeah, that's the weird thing. It's like I've seen them in so many cons in the green room, and they're just sitting at a table together, and it'd be so easy to go over and say hi, but I'm like, why? Let them be who they are, and they'll it always surprises you who you're gonna freak out about because you'll think it's gonna be like the big A-list actors like Jason Momoa or whatever, and like he's very pretty. But the people that I actually get like emotional about tend to be people from my childhood. So like Brendan Fraser walked by at a con recently, and he like waved at me, and I was just like, oh my gosh, like. But again, didn't like go up to talk to him. Or David Tennant. I've been like so close to him so many times and never like actually said anything because I'm just like, you're my first doctor. I don't want to.
Right.
Because also there's like a weird code of operation where, you know, backstage at the green room at cons, everybody kind of understands like, don't fan out back here. Like we're all trying to just eat lunch and be. You know, they're getting that all day. They're getting people being like, oh my god, I loved you in this. Like, oh my god, can you take a photo with me? So it's kind of understood that let them eat in peace and like not be a celebrity for a second and just be a person, which they always are, but you know, they don't have to be on backstage.
Right. That makes sense. And I think it's the same for me because I've interviewed like celebrities and stuff, but I think Boy Meets World, seeing that cast was like the biggest like fan moment. Like eyes like have stars in them. Yeah. I didn't get to interview them, but I went to a panel they had at San Diego Comic-Con.
Okay, yeah.
I think it was San Diego Comic-Con. And
that's so like... bizarre that like Comic-Con used to be like for comics and now it's like, you know, Boy Meets World reunion. Right. Like literally anything is just put it at Comic-Con. I don't know.
It's just pop culture. Like anything works.
Yeah, pretty much. Anything that'll draw a crowd.
And it did. It had like one of the biggest rooms. It might have been New York Comic-Con. It was one of them. I feel bad that I can't remember. But yeah, that was that was probably like the biggest. So I'm with you on that. Like they were my friends too, like for an extended period of time.
It's almost like a sad thing because it's almost like that kid who's like sits in the back of the cafeteria and imagines that they're their friends. Like that's kind of how I feel, where I'm like, you don't know that you're my best friends, but I do.
Right. Like we totally hung out. You don't even know. Like every night.
Yep.
Yeah. Have you had what's been your hardest role to play so far?
I'm trying to think. I mean, sometimes I find, and it might be just like more personal, like if I work through these issues in my personal life, maybe they won't be as difficult, but I have a hard time playing characters who are considered meek, or I don't want to say victims, but like the character who kind of just is passive or gets pushed around by the other characters in a show. Like I have a hard time playing those, and maybe that's because in real life, you know, like aspirationally, I play the characters that I want to be, like these like confident, cocky, you know, like ballsy characters. And like I do have a lot of confidence, but I also had a lot of getting pushed around like by other people's opinions of me, or like I got gaslit a lot. I had a lot of narcissists in my past, so like maybe that's why I have a harder time relating to those characters, because I hate that part of myself, because it's obviously there, so that's like a deep dive into that question. But I also have a hard time with parts. So I'm mixed race. So my dad's from Louisiana, so we got some black, white, and Native American in there. And in voiceover, they're trying to, which is a good thing, they're trying to get more ethnic specific casting, where if a character is something, they would like to try and get an actor who also is that as well. The problem is they forget that ethnicity doesn't always mean culture.
Right.
And so they'll be like, well, you're kind of black, play this character. And I had one time where they were like, can you play like we originally envisioned this role would be played by Queen Latifah.
Oh wow.
And I was like, and you hired me? Like,
yeah.
Like I don't know, it's just interesting. Like, so those roles can be hard because like they want me to put on something. Because first of all, I'm like, that's not, like, they're like, can you sound a little, and they won't say blacker, but they'll say, like, and they don't say urban anymore. They've learned that that's not okay. But they'll say, I had one guy who was like, can you be a little sassier, can you, like, shoot from the hip, you know what I'm saying, sister girl? And it was so offensive. I was just like, He was like an 80-year-old white dude. I'm like, I mean, look, I know that I sound like as urban as, like, I don't know, a pumpkin spice latte, but I'm pretty sure you also aren't the one to teach me how to do it either.
Yeah, it's so cringy.
It was so cringy. So those roles are hard because I'm like, there's people who actually could do this with integrity, whereas for me, it's like almost guessing as well. I feel like it feels like, I don't know, I guess it can't be cultural appropriation if I'm part of that, but I don't know, maybe it is. Like, it feels like I'm putting on an idea of somebody, and I don't feel comfortable with that. So that's another scenario that's a little harder for me.
Like an authenticity type of thing.
Yeah, because I have friends who actually, well, it's interesting because with acting, like, I have a friend who, like, plays, he's on, In the Dark, he plays Darnell, and his character's, like, a thug with a heart of gold. But the funny thing is, Keston himself, he's like, he had to learn how to do that because his mother's Haitian, like, his family's from Florida, so it's just funny that, like, the industry wants you to be a certain thing, like their idea of a certain group of people, but like, he had to learn how to be that because that wasn't part of his culture. I don't know. Sorry, I'm probably just going into weird territory now, but
I too am Haitian and from Florida. So.
Oh, what?
It's like, yeah.
That's so funny. Yeah, like his so he could do like island stuff with authenticity because he's like always mimicking his mom, and but he's like, I had to learn how to be urban because he is the, if you ever hear him talk, he's just like, he's always got a big grin on his face, and he's kind of, I don't know if nerdy is the right word, but he's just like a big goofball nerd. So it's just weird to see him play roles where he's like, holding a gun sideways and doing all that stuff that Hollywood thinks is, they're like, yes, this is what this demographic acts like, right?
Yeah, that's how it is.
Yeah.
So you're talking about ghosts and stuff, right? How did that come about? I love the description. It's like Parks and Rec meets Ghostbusters because I love both of those things. Yeah,
I love Parks and Rec a lot. It's one of the few shows I've rewatched multiple times and still, like, holds its value every time. And I guess it's because, like, some shows you watch because it's like you're watching it for the plot, or like, oh, the twist ending, but once you know it, there's no rewatch value because what the plot is. Whereas Parks and Rec was one of those shows where it was about the relationships. So it has so much rewatchability because you love the people and you would see them do anything. Like, you'll watch them go camping. You'll watch them try to open a nightclub. Like, it doesn't really matter what their job is. It's the people and the way they interact with each other that was fascinating. Right. So I wanted to do a show like that basically, was, they have a job and they're ghost hunters, but, like, the ghost hunting was going to be secondary. So it's like the ghost hunting would be a way to facilitate the storylines between the characters. Like, there's an episode where one of the characters' uncle died, and it's Dia de los Muertos, and that character, like, they go home to his family, and they're like, he's really depressed because his Tio's gone, and so the others like try to pretend to they try to pretend like one of the characters is possessed by his Tio to like give him closure and say goodbye. So it's like it's less about the ghost and more about like what these people are willing to do for their friends. So yeah, and I also just loved like watching ghost hunting shows growing up, even even though I'm pretty sure half the time they were just like, what was that? And there was like nothing there.
Right.
But I loved the fact that they would do a whole hour-long investigation, and then at the end they'd sit down with the owner and be like, yeah, your place is super haunted. But they wouldn't actually like get rid of the ghost. They'd just be like, all right, have fun. So
let you know.
Yeah, just so you know, just FYI. So in the first episode, you kind of have an homage to that, where he's just like, what are you gonna do about it? It's like, we're not the freaking Ghostbusters. Like, good luck.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of how that came about, and I filmed it with a couple friends. There's a bunch of voice actor friends in it, and I kind of got halfway through the show, and then I ran out of money because I was making it myself, and I did not understand that this stuff costs a lot of money to pay your crew and feed people and get costumes and rent equipment. So I have the next 6 episodes of the season planned, but I don't know if we'll be able to do it without the money, and it's also been 4 years, so we're all probably a little bit fatter now.
Wow, yeah, that might be hard. I mean, they did what was it? Like Wet Hot American Summer?
That's true, and it's supposed to be a prequel to the previous thing, right?
Right, and they're older, and it's the prequel, yeah. So I mean, anything is possible.
That's a good point. Yeah, we could do or we could do a time jump like Parks and Rec, where they jump forward like 7 years or something.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, because it's fun. But now I live in Atlanta. KG still lives in LA. Emily and Jonathan live in Portland. So it's like we'd have to reassemble the troops, and that might be a little expensive. But I just want to do it. I want to do it so much because I have like a musical episode planned. I got all sorts of fun stuff in my head.
That sounds super fun. Do you have any advice for people who want to create a web series or to get into voice acting?
So yes, voice acting. Let's see. Web series first. I was a little too ambitious with my first project. I think when you're starting out, you should do something easier, like something that's maybe takes place in like one location, or a location that you can get. So if you have a family member who runs a restaurant, great, you can set it in a restaurant. But if you don't have somebody who runs a restaurant, you'd probably have to rent out the restaurant, and that's going to cost you money. And try to keep your costs low on the first one, because I put probably like $8,000 into it, and like you're not going to get your money back, odds are, most likely. You should do it for fun, but don't do it as an investment strategy of being like, yeah, I'm going to make this web series and then HBO will pick it up, because that could happen, but odds are it won't. So just, I'm trying to think of what else. Keep your costs low. Yeah, and you're going to make mistakes. Like, there's going to be a learning curve. Even if you think you're doing everything perfect, on the day of, something might happen, or it might rain, or there's going to be things that get in your way. So if you invested, $100,000 into something, that's probably gonna stress you out a lot more if things go wrong than if you are just filming something with your friend and it's a little lower stakes, and good things happen when you take mistakes and just be like, all right, well, let's get creative. How can we turn this into something cool? We had an episode of Ghosts and Stuff where we could not find an elderly Latina woman to play his abuela. Like, we just could not find her for some reason. I guess in LA there's like maybe 3 working Latina actresses of that age, and they all are successful, so they're not going to do a web series for nothing. So it was hard to find one, and so we eventually had my friend Sam put on a wig, and we had a voice actress who speaks Spanish play the voice of her, and then we just blurred out Sam's face and like and made it part of the show that like abuela didn't, she's like, I don't want to be on camera, don't show me on camera. So like it kind of made it funnier to have just like random lady walking around with a blurred face. So yeah, being creative when mistakes and things don't go your way. And have a strategy for how you're going to market it, because I kind of just put it online thinking if you build it, they will come, and that is not the case. Like, a lot of successful web series tended to have publicists. Like, if you're going to put money anywhere, put some in the put money in like the sound guy and your DP, and then put the rest into a publicist and marketing. So, make a good product and then get it out there. Because a good product is not always just something, people aren't just going to discover it. Nobody's sitting and looking and just going to go, oh, what web series should I watch today? Like, they just don't do that. So yeah, so that's web series, or just like creating your own content. And then voice acting, I always recommend being an actor first, because people don't seem to understand that voice acting is acting. It's in the name. And it's actually harder, I think, to voice act than a lot of the other acting mediums, because if I'm doing a play, I have costumes, or I'll have set to climb on, or I'll have music or other actors, to play off of. So, same with on set, like on a movie set, unless you're doing green screen. So I would say voiceover is like the equivalent of seeing that actor who's by themselves on a set and pretending that they're talking to a million people with a green screen. Like, that's the equivalent. You have to put all the entire burden of the imagination is on you when you're a voice actor, or, green screen on camera actor. So you have to flex your imagination muscles, and acting classes are probably one of the best ways to do that. Because acting is basically just saying what if. Like, what if I was a 13-year-old boy who's the son of the Hokage? Or what if I was a dragon with, a speech impediment? Or, you have to be willing to suspend your disbelief and play anything. And be like, yep, I'm totally running up a volcano and then jumping in and then getting spat back out. And you have to be able to do all that with just your voice. So theater classes, I think, are probably the best, because they teach you not only how to act and do that what if, and flex your imagination muscles, but they also have movement classes. Because I'm very physical in the booth. Like, when if I'm in a scene and I'm supposed to be running and jumping, like, I'm actually pretty much doing that. Or learning how your instrument changes if you hunch your shoulders, or if you stick out your pelvis, or like whatever, like wherever the character lives. With Boruto, I find that I'll like end up with my leg on a chair like Captain Morgan. Like, I'll be standing and kind of put my one leg up, because it's like puts me in a position to feel more like, yeah, I'm the cock of the walk, or whatever that phrase is. So, and then they also have voice classes when you're doing a theater degree, or theater training, which are so helpful. They teach you how to really hone your instrument and be able to place your voice in different places. Or singing classes. Singing classes kind of achieve a similar thing, and you learn breath control and how to protect your voice when you're screaming, or doing in video games or whatever. So once you've got the training, I recommend taking voiceover specific classes, because then those will teach you mic technique. They'll teach you how to, what to do when you're in the booth and what not to do, but they'll also teach you how to do different reads for different mediums, like commercial voiceover versus animation versus video games, and even the differences between commercial, radio commercial versus TV versus, different brands. Like, you learn how to be able to be a chameleon, and then you'll make a demo after that, once you've kind of figured out what you're best at and what your selling points are as an actor. Like, if you've got like a quirky voice, or if you've got a voice that's very authoritative, or if you've got a sexy voice, you can sell luxury cars and perfumes and stuff. Like, you make the demo reel. It's a minute long. That I'd recommend taking your time with and splurging on, because people have long memories. So do a demo reel with like a professional who can like produce it for you and make it sound like it's real stuff. Like, it should sound like it's pulled from real spots you've done, even though people know that you're starting out. It's just understood. And then you submit to agents and casting people. And then the agents, ideally an agent would sign you, and then that's kind of where it takes off from there, because the agent will get you access to bigger and better jobs, bigger video games, bigger commercials, and then you just kind of audition and until you start booking and people start knowing who you are. And even then, I think Yuri Lowenthal, who works all the time, said that he might audition 300 and something times in a year and maybe book 11. So be prepared that it's... People think we make millions, and that's odd. I'm like, no. We all still have student loans and credit card debt. We're like middle-class working people. So, be prepared to also have another job or another source of income while you're trying to get established, and yeah, take it as it comes. That was a very long-winded answer, but hopefully it answered it.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like, I don't know if this next question would kind of fall into that, but so at the end of Sailor Moon, she had a Sailor Moon Says phrase that she would kind of give some advice about like life in general. So if you can do like Amanda Miller Says, or what would it be?
So this one actually doesn't have to do with voice acting. It's more like a lesson I've learned about about like dating.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
Let me see. I'm trying to find the concise way to phrase it. I guess Sailor Jupiter says, dating isn't like HGTV shows. Don't go for a fixer-upper. That's my advice, because I've learned like, oh, you should just date somebody and take them as is, because most people don't change. Mm-hmm. So, if you're like, well, he's great, but he's an alcoholic, which is what my last guy was. It's like, hey, maybe wait until he, maybe if he gets sober, great, but like, don't bank on that, or don't be like, well, he's great, but he doesn't text me back, and he doesn't really want to be exclusive, but I can make him love me. Like, nope.
No, you cannot.
Like, yeah, just, like, don't be like, well, like when these people, they walk into a house and they're like, well, I want to knock down all these walls and redo. It's like, no, if you got to rebuild the foundation of this person that you're looking at, they're not for you. Like, the right person for you, they may not be perfect, but they'll be move-in ready, as I'm using this analogy of HGTV. Like, they'll be like, yeah, I can live with that. Like, yeah, maybe there might need to be a little new paint. Maybe they need to learn to put the toilet seat down, but for the most part, I love them as they are, and not trying to change them or make them love you.
Yeah. This is gonna be super not as great, but I would also add that to clothes, because there's so many times I'll shop for something and I'll find like a shirt. I'm like, oh, this would be really cute if I wear it with this specific outfit. Or like, or if I cut off this one part, or if I do this one thing to it, and it's like, you're gonna spend money on this outfit that you're gonna have to alter. Like, just don't get it.
Yeah, I do that all the time where I'm like, oh man, well, I stopped doing it because I started like Marie Kondoing my life, where I'm just like, does this bring joy as it is? No. Versus being like, well, if I just, like you said, if I hem this here and maybe, take it in here, it's like, do I know how to do that? No. Then I'm not going to do it, and then it's not going to bring me joy, so don't do it. It's just like,
Yep. So, yep. Men, clothes, and houses. Do not.
Yeah, like, be willing to be surprised in your search for men, clothes, or housing, where you're like, oh, I thought I wanted this, but I actually kind of like this little weird nook over here, or this veranda, or the quirkiness of this old house or something. But like, yeah, if you got to be like, well, I wanted a beachfront property, but I can't find it, and I have a scarcity mentality, so I'm just willing to settle for this little shack on the side of the road. Like, don't do it. You're not going to be able to fix it up into a beach house, so it's not going to make you happy.
Beach will not automatically appear next to your
Yeah, exactly. Like, no matter how hard you try, the odds are the beach won't automatically appear, and if it did, it's probably because the world's ending and the streets are flooding in a river of blood. Yeah. That got really dark very quickly.
Yeah, no. Then you have other issues to worry about.
Yeah. Then your property tax and your beachfront property are like the last thing you're going to worry about.
Yeah, you need to start preparing for the apocalypse.
Oh, I'm so behind. I haven't... I gotta make my tinfoil hats. Or is that more like aliens? I don't know if that's apocalypse.
It might happen at the same time the way that things are going, honestly.
I saw a post this morning that was like, when aliens drive by Earth, they lock their car doors or something like that. like we're the bad neighborhood or something.
Right. I believe it, 'cause, yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah. I've seen another one where it's like the Earth is like, oh, I got humans, like fleas.
Yeah, pretty much. It's like the
Yeah.
way what we're doing to it. Like, yeah, I feel so anxious even when I throw away like a piece of plastic where I'm like, well, I know that I could recycle this in California, but here in Georgia they don't recycle this particular type of plastic, but this is probably gonna live in the earth forever, and it's gonna be my fault, and the earth's gonna remember, like, Amanda, why did you do this to me? And I'm gonna be like, I'm sorry, Earth, I didn't know.
Right. Yeah, I try to recycle, and then I figured out that you have to soak the labels off, or else it like takes more work for them to actually recycle it. And I'm just like, is there nothing I can do?
The labels?
Yeah,
I'm like, I've never
I'm
done that.
sorry.
I did. I know that you have to clean out, like if there's anything sticky or whatever, like you have to clean
Yeah,
out the crap, and then also that bottle tops tend to be stuff that you just have to throw away, but the bottles themselves you can usually recycle. But apparently not if I leave the label on. And if it's soiled, like if it's like a piece of like a pizza box, you can't recycle some paper that's been soiled.
I didn't know that. Well, there goes all my pizza boxes.
I mean, who knows? Maybe they could, but I heard that like if it's been soiled with food, just throw it away.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think. Yeah, I'm sure it's like the sticker residue of the bottles. Like they just more work for them. But hopefully we'll figure this Earth thing out.
We're adulting. We're like trying to adult with the Earth.
Yeah.
We're like, ugh, I gotta get my Earth together.
Right, basically. So, meantime, while we do that, what's next for you, and where can people find you?
Oh, let's see what's next. I'm doing the TV and film thing in Georgia, or I'm trying to. So like I just auditioned for like a series regular on a CW show, so that would be cool.
Awesome.
Who knows? There's a million people that audition for these things, but
Hey,
so hopefully TV and film would be on the docket.
Yeah.
But right now I'm writing a couple projects. I have a feature, I'm writing a feature that's going to be a Louisiana Creole, because that's where my family's from, or my dad's from, like a horror short that takes place in like the late 1700s.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, it's like a supernatural horror thing. It's gonna be real cool, but I don't know how to describe it outside of that. But yeah, and I'm working on writing a couple TV pilots, so we'll see if those actually can go anywhere. But yeah, I have a sketch coming out soon. It's I haven't labeled it yet though, but it's basically like a fake dating service for people who live in LA but aren't Hollywood hot. And so it's basically like, it's like, do you have a hard time dating in LA? Are you a regular looking human being? And like, well, we can help. And basically they bus we call it underprivileged LA singles to other cities to find love. And it's based on my experiences where like in LA, could not get a date to save my life. But then I'd go to like Atlanta, or I'd go to London, or I'd go to literally any other city, and like guys would be interested in me there. So I'm just like, man, I'm like a Tallahassee 10, but in LA 3.5. So the sketch will be about that. So that'll come out on my YouTube and on my Instagram and Facebook and all the social medias. Which I guess I should share, shouldn't I?
Yeah, you want to.
Okay, well, Facebook and Instagram, it's at Amanda Celine Miller, and Celine's my middle name, so Celine. And then on Twitter, it's Amanda_Celine, because the Amanda Celine Miller is one character too long for the Twitter username. So, YouTube, I think it's Amanda Celine Miller Comedy. And I'm sure I have other ones that I probably have not updated. I think I have a Tumblr, which probably is also Amanda Celine Miller. And yeah, come find me there. I think I'm more active on Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
But yeah, come say hi.
And also, I feel like if the creator of Sailor Moon was like, you are the chosen one for the voice of my series, I would just like have the biggest ego about everything. You're like, a million people tried out for CW. I'd be like, oh, I'm gonna get this. Creator of Sailor Moon said I'm good.
I mean, it is. I think it's good to have that attitude, because I really do think that what you put out there comes back to you. So if you're like, you know what, I believe this is possible, it's almost like everybody else is like, well, if they believe it's possible, I guess it is. Because like, I have no like for TV, I have no co-star credits, which are like the little tiny credits you use to build up to get bigger and bigger parts. Yet I've auditioned for 2 series regulars in the past 6 months. Like, I don't know why. To me, it's usually you can't audition for series regulars until you have a bunch of roles. for TV and film under your belt, but I just happened to be the right, like, in the right, whatever they were looking for. And, I might not necessarily book them, but just being considered. So you're right. It's like, if I can do that, anything's possible.
Right. Yeah. Believe in yourself.
Yeah. Believe in yourself, and don't date the little shack man.
Yes.
Date your beachfront property. Hold out for that.
Yes. Thank you again for being on the show. This was really fun.
My rambling didn't bore you.
No, it was perfect. Perfect amount of rambles. Perfect amount of Sailor Moon talk.